There's a simple test to see if America is still attractive to the world. It's not in the economic reports, nor is it in the polling rooms. It's in your hands, or rather, in the latte you're holding. $7 for a cup of coffee, $0 for a burger meal, $300 for a mid-range hotel night. And that's before you pay an additional $50 visa fee to enter the country. What was the result of the test? Too obvious. The world is disappearing. Visitors from Canada, Europe, and Asia, people who once dreamed of America, are now choosing Tokyo, Barcelona, or Mexico City. While 183 countries rolled out the red carpet, the US erected fences and hung signs that read, "Do not disturb." The question is no longer why customers aren't coming, but why should they come? In this video, we'll count down 5 reasons why tourists are saying no to America, which the government never wants you to know. And the final truth might make you rethink the very future of this country. Let's get started. You know the world has changed. When a fast food burger in New York now costs almost as much as a dinner in Rome. And the family vacation in America, once a dream within everyone's reach, now feels like a luxury item displayed behind thick glass, accessible only to the wealthy. Let's start with a seemingly small but painful number. $20 for a burger combo. Enough to buy a hearty meal for the whole family in Mexico. $7 for a latte, almost the price of a lunch in Lisbon. And $300 for a mid-range hotel night in Los Angeles is equivalent to a month's rent in a small town in Canada. It's all just to start the journey, not including airfare, travel insurance, city transportation costs, and especially the hidden fees that the government adds like toppings on an already full pizza. This year, the STA entry fee increased from $1 to $40, and if the new bill is passed, visitors will also have to pay an additional $250 visa integrity fee. A name that sounds righteous, but feels like a VIP pass for the wealthy. The result is, a middle-class Canadian family wanting to take their child to the US has to spend 30% more for the same journey compared to 5 years ago. And that's 30% of them who don't have it. A French couple cancelled their 20th anniversary trip to California and chose Japan instead. It's not because they love sushi more than Hollywood, and simply because they feel more welcome and their wallets aren't drained like in the US. Price is not just a number on an invoice, it's a statement. And the message America is sending is very clear. If you don't have enough money, don't come. A tour guide in Seattle shared that he no longer sees any Toronto Blue Jays hats. The familiar symbol of Canadian visitors has disappeared from the streets. Tour revenue decreased by 30%, but he still had to pay his employees, yet couldn't pay himself. And when someone who used to live off tourism has to choose between their employee's salary and dinner money, you know the system is cracking from within. Cost is not just a financial barrier, it's an emotional barrier. When you feel a country charges for every breath you take, you don't just hesitate to spend, you start questioning value. Why should I pay $7 for a cup of coffee when I can enjoy espresso in Rome and be greeted with a smile? Why should I pay an extra $250 to be allowed through the gate when it only costs $7 and 3 minutes to fill out the form in Europe? These are the questions that are swirling in the minds of millions of tourists, and each time, a plane ticket to the US is cancelled. If a country that once represented opportunity for all now becomes a destination only for a select few, is it still the America the world once dreamed of? And more importantly, are we building a wall not to keep out immigrants, but to keep out the very people who once admired us? A saying I'll never forget. In the old days, people came to America to find their dreams. Today, they stay home to avoid bills. But the new bills are just the beginning. In the next part, you'll see that inside there's something even more daunting than money. The entry experience can turn a vacation into a nightmare. If the price wall is the outer ring that makes people hesitate, then the entry experience is the knockout round, where many tourists give up before their vacation even begins. And believe me, it's no different from a survival game show. On one side is you, carrying a suitcase, imagining a selfie in front of the Grand Canyon. On the other side is the US Border Patrol system, slow as a turtle, grumpy as a judge, and always ready to say the phrase no one wants to hear. Sorry, sir, step aside. While both involve getting off a plane, in Frankfurt, it only takes an average of 12 minutes to go from the exit to a taxi. At JFK, the busiest international airport in the United States, that number is 2 hours and 45 minutes. 2.5 hours. Enough time to watch almost an entire movie, or regret booking tickets here. Not only that, want to apply for a US tourist visa? Be prepared to wait 12 months just for a few minutes of an interview. Meanwhile, the EU's digital travel permit, which takes just 3 minutes to fill out and costs $7. It sounds like two different planets. In the US, they don't just check passports. They may ask you to open your phone, look at photos, search your email, and question you about your trip. Some people are even denied entry despite having a valid visa. And when the government shuts down due to budget disputes, which happens quite often, chaos ensues. TSA agents aren't paid, many employees call in sick, and only 2 to 3 security checkpoints are operational for thousands of people. The feeling of waiting in an endless line just to take off your shoes, remove your belt, and pray you don't get randomly checked is enough to turn a vacation into torture. Ironically, this is a country that once prided itself on freedom. Now it makes you feel like you're crossing a military checkpoint, not the entrance to the land of opportunity. The story spread like wildfire on social media. A Japanese couple arrived in Los Angeles, and as soon as they left the airport, they saw a long line of homeless tents right by the road. 10 minutes later, they were asked to return to the airport to change their tickets to a direct flight to Hawaii. They are not the only ones. Thousands of other tourists did the same, not because they hated America, but because of the feeling, I'm not welcome here. The cost of travel isn't just money. It's also something more intangible, time and patience. And when a trip begins with 3 hours of waiting in line, intense questioning, phone checks, and a 50 fee, one wonders, is it worth it? When I was in Europe, it only took a few minutes and a few euros to be greeted with a smile. If a country has to turn its airports into fortresses to feel safe, then perhaps what is being threatened is not just security, but the very image of the country itself. But ironically, even crossing the border wasn't the end of the journey. Because what awaits you out there makes many people run faster than airport, security, and that is the American dream crumbling on every street. There was a time when the phrase American dream was the strongest brand on the planet. It doesn't need advertising, it doesn't need marketing. It's a sweet invitation to the whole world. Come here, you'll see the future. But now, perhaps that slogan needs a small footnote. The dream may not be as described. When dreams open the door and step out onto the street and stumble upon reality, you land in Los Angeles, the city of Hollywood and bright lights. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, the first thing you see is a tent-lined avenue stretching for miles. Skid Row, one of the largest homeless hotspots in the United States, has now become an unlikely check-in point on TikTok. San Francisco, once a symbol of innovation, is now more famous for tours through an area filled with syringes and trash bags. It's not a post-apocalyptic film. That's the reality of an economic superpower. According to statistics, Los Angeles alone has over 75,000 homeless people, a number larger than the population of many European towns. And that's the first thing many tourists see even before they see the Statue of Liberty. Not only that, many tourists say that the image of America is gradually becoming an emotional burden for them. 73% of French people no longer consider the US an ally. only 32% of Germans have a positive view of the United States. This is not the result of a random social media survey. This is a signal from the very nations that once admired and trusted the United States the most. The world isn't just avoiding the US, they're losing faith. And when trust is lost, no tourism promotion campaign can save it. A true story from Paris. An American couple from Oregon felt embarrassed while walking down the street. The husband puts black tape over the stars and stripes on the baseball cap. The wife carried a Canadian maple leaf badge in her pocket, just in case she needed to disguise herself. When your own citizens no longer want to be recognized as Americans, it's not just an image problem, that's an identity crisis. The image of America is not only fading in the eyes of tourists, but also in the eyes of its own people. 61% of Americans believe their children will live worse lives than the current generation. A vial of insulin in Florida costs $600, while in Mexico it's only a few dollars. A teacher in Texas wrote, "I love America, but I don't love its hospital bills." The result? More and more Americans are leaving their own country, not because they hate their homeland, but because they can't afford to live there. A 65-year-old former sailor who moved to Lisbon said, "I bought private health insurance in Portugal for the price of my electricity bill in Texas." It sounds like a joke, but it's a real choice for thousands of Americans every year. Tourists aren't just looking for scenery, they're looking for an experience. And when the first feeling in America is fatigue, skepticism, and disappointment, people don't just abandon the trip. They abandon their faith altogether. A country that was once a beacon of hope is now being compared to Tokyo, Barcelona, or Lisbon. Places where quality of life is not a slogan, but something people can reach out and touch. Questions for you to consider. If the national image, once the greatest asset, is gradually becoming a liability, are tourists avoiding the US, or are they simply avoiding a sense of disappointment? But while the American dream fades, the rest of the world is doing the opposite, redefining travel as a worthwhile experience. And that's what's causing the US to fall further behind. If America turns travel into a series of challenges, from price walls to patience checkpoints, Europe chooses a different path, making it a journey of enjoyment. And while America is trying every way to keep tourists, Europe doesn't need to beg anyone. Tourists find their own way there. Not just a few people, but hundreds of millions. In 2024 alone, Europe welcomed 747 million visitors, more than 4 times the population of the United States. And in just the first 3 months of 2025, the number increased by 300 million, equivalent to the entire population of the United States traveling in Europe in just 1 quarter. Why? Because from the moment you step off the plane, you're greeted, not scrutinized. At Frankfurt Airport in Germany, the average time from the plane to a taxi is 12 minutes. No long lines, no endless questions. You stepped out like a distinguished guest, not like a refugee. Meanwhile, at JFK, a similar journey takes nearly 3 hours, enough time to drink 3 lattes and book another trip to Europe. In Europe, the journey isn't the tiring part before the destination. It's part of the destination. An Interrail pass allows you to travel through 33 countries with just 1 ticket. The EU travel permit takes just 3 minutes to apply for and costs €7, less than a sandwich in Manhattan. Cuisine is not just an accessory, it's economic. In Copenhagen, restaurants contribute 8.7% to GDP, equivalent to €2.3 billion per year. And the experience doesn't stop at just eating and sightseeing. In Barcelona, you can pay to participate directly in the construction of the Sagrada Familia, a truly immersive travel experience. In Paris, the Louvre Museum stays open late so you can see the Mona Lisa under the moonlight. Traveling in Europe isn't just about spending money, it's a life experience. The data may be dry, but the feeling is not. A recent study shows that American travelers are booking tables in Europe up to 18 months in advance, not to celebrate anything special, just to have a normal dinner on Tuesday night. That's the power of feeling. In Europe, you don't feel like you're being subjected to security checks. You feel like you're the invited guest. And that's something that can't be created with promotional slogans or marketing campaigns. And this is perhaps the point that America has forgotten. People don't choose a destination just for the scenery. They chose it because of how they were treated there. Europe understands this down to the smallest detail. From the seats on the train, airport procedures, visa policies, to the way a waiter greets customers with a look. The US, on the other hand, still thinks of travel as a privilege that the world must strive to obtain. Europe knows. Travel is an experience you should be grateful for when people want to share it with you. Questions for reflection. If the world seeks a place where they feel they belong, will America still be an option or just a memory? But the more remarkable truth is, the biggest threat to American tourism doesn't lie in Europe or Japan, but right here at home. Politics and wrong decisions can take away the future of this industry. There's a classic saying in business, never argue with your customers. And yet, the United States, and especially some states heavily reliant on tourism, seems to have forgotten that. Instead of inviting guests into the house, we put up fences, argue at the door, and then are surprised when they no longer want to knock. Take Florida as an example, a tourist paradise with over 142 million visitors in 2024, contributing $150 billion to the economy. Yet, in a controversial decision, the state government chose to dissolve all 62 tourism development councils. These councils are not useless paper offices. They are marketing machines worth $2 billion annually from hotel taxes. They use that money to promote the destination, restore beaches, and attract sporting events. Getting rid of them is like taking the engine out of a car and then being surprised why the car doesn't run anymore. The consequences didn't take long to arrive. Revenue is at risk of losing up to $37 billion, with $22.5 billion in wages disappearing into thin air. Many small businesses, bars, restaurants, family-run hotels no longer have their regular customers. A bar owner on Tampa Beach sighed. Spring break never came, and summer didn't either. And it's not just about the numbers. The Canadian tour groups, who spend an average of $33,000 each season, have now almost disappeared. The number of visitors from Canada has decreased by 80% compared to before. A hotel that used to be packed with snowbirds every winter is now losing over 50% of its bookings. All for the sake of about $60 off property taxes per household each year. A great bargain if you don't count the tens of thousands of jobs that disappear along with it. Tourism is not a glamorous industry, but it is the soft underbelly of the local economy. It feeds millions of people, from waiters, taxi drivers, and hotel staff to street performers. When that flow is blocked by political decisions, everything slowly suffocates. And the irony is that those who are most affected are the very people who were promised a benefit. They got a few $dozen off their taxes each year, but had to watch their jobs, revenue, and even their community plummet. At a deeper level, this is no longer about tourists not liking America. The problem is that America is sending a message. We don't need you. We let politics dictate tourism policy, turning economic partners into hostages of debates. And in a world where every travel dollar can choose any destination, from Barcelona to Bangkok, that message could make tourists never return. Are we protecting the interests of the people, or are we sacrificing their own economic future to win short-term political battles? And that is the greatest threat. Not competition from the world, but the internal apathy that is causing America to lose one of its most important economic pillars. Imagine a seemingly far-fetched scenario that is gradually becoming a reality. Tourists are not returning to the United States. Not for a year, not for 2 years, but forever. International tourism brings in over 12.5 billion USD annually. If that cash flow disappears, the domino effect will happen faster than you think. The hotel is empty, and the front desk staff's shifts have been cut. The restaurant is empty, and the chef and servers are out of work. Airport shuttle services have stopped running, and drivers' incomes have vanished. Local governments lose tax revenue, and budgets for infrastructure, schools, and healthcare shrink. An economy that once ran like a machine now screeches like an old car without oil. America once shaped the world, not only through technology or military might, but also through the images, music, films, and lifestyles that millions of tourists brought back with them when they returned home. If those trips were to stop, what's called soft power, invisible but extremely valuable strength, would disappear behind the border fence. A nation that once welcomed the world through Ellis Island now erects a checkpoint right at its own airport. And when you build walls for too long, people will learn to take detours. Losing tourists isn't just about losing revenue. That's losing the way the world sees you. No more stories of dazzling New York or dreamy California. Only silence remains. And that silence is more dangerous than any number. But there is. The good news is, the door isn't completely closed. The US could completely turn things around if visa barriers and entry costs were reduced and a sense of welcome was created. Invest in the visitor experience, from the airport to the streets. Separate the economy from short-term politics. View tourism as a bridge, not a hostage. Retelling the American story, not through slogans, but through real-life experiences that people will never forget. If you turn your house into a fortress, don't be surprised when guests don't knock. And when there are no more customers, you'll probably realize you don't want to be there either. A question for you. Do we have the courage to open the door again? Or will we choose to live in the empty house called the American dream? Perhaps the scariest thing isn't that the world is leaving America behind, but that America is slowly getting used to being forgotten. A nation that once welcomed millions through Ellis Island now erects fences, invisible barriers of cost, bureaucracy, image, politics, and attitude. And when the door has been closed long enough, people will no longer want to knock. They will go elsewhere, where they are greeted with a smile, where a cup of coffee doesn't cost patience, where dreams aren't bills. But it's not over yet. This picture can still change. If America dares to face the truth, that power lies not in walls, but in how you open doors. That status doesn't come from slogans, but from the experience you create. Now it's your turn to speak up. Do you believe that America can return to being the world's #1 destination? Or have we gone too far to turn back? Please share your thoughts in the comments section, because sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest conversations. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future in-depth and candid analyses of the American economy, politics, and society. This video is for informational and analytical purposes only and does not represent any organization or political viewpoint. All data and evidence are compiled from public and reliable sources. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and draw their own conclusions. Thank you for your companionship. And remember, a dream only lives on as long as someone believes in it.